his computer. All right, welcome to Vibe Osmosis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, it's been an all right one. We'll say that. Go ahead
hmm
and introduce yourself and what you do.
I'm Slash Girl. I produce music and I dabble a little bit in sound design.
What got you interested into music and sound design?
My dad is actually a music engineer, and so I've always seen him do like work on music, and it kind of sparked that passion in me. I would like play around when I was younger on DAWs and things, and then I think about 3, 4 years ago, I wanted to start like really getting serious about music, so I decided to.
Also, how old are you?
I'm 21. I just turned 21 in October.
Well, happy belated. Do you what's your astrology? Do you follow it?
hmm you want to know like my big three or
Yeah, yeah, if you know them.
okay? I'm a Libra sun, Scorpio moon, and Cancer rising.
Do you identify like do you feel like it actually taps into who you are, or do you feel indifferent about like what these signs say?
Mm. I sometimes I'm indifferent, but sometimes I'm like I can kind of see because I read up on some things and I'm like, yeah, I see that in myself. It makes sense.
So I've been checking out your music. The first thing that whenever I first reached out to you, the first stuff that I seen was the girl made of grass.
hmm
Like what kind of inspired that title, and like where did that music come from?
So I was like in a really bad spot in life and not doing well mentally, and I was still making music at that time, but like at that time I was like I'm gonna quit, like I'm gonna take a break. And like I had like this long like talk with my friend, and she basically like told me that I shouldn't quit and that I should use the things that I'm feeling to inspire myself to make more music. And I listened to her and I ended up making that project with like all the things that I was feeling in mind and all the instrumentals. I tried to get my emotions out. And then I also like used clips of like movies and shows to convey the point across to the listener.
Yeah, so I was wondering, are all those samples, or also are you in some of those weird audio clippings that are in the songs?
Most of them are samples. I think in the first track, the people at the end who are saying like "I love Slash," that's all of my like friends. And then in the last song before the bonus tracks, more than anything, that is my friend Tiana, who the person I was talking about earlier, who like talked to me and basically told me to use my emotions in music.
That is pretty nice.
Mhm.
Also, whenever it comes to like friends checking out your music, is it over like too much feedback, and you're like, I don't even know certain stuff, especially in movies. I feel like more today, it's like the stuff that's like in between the lines and like what like really sets that vibe and that eerie feeling on some of these ones that you have, or like remind me of like you're like trapped in like a dystopian world or kingdom, or like a you're traveling like a maybe like a fantasy castle that is like constantly moving, and because of like the different, like whenever you listen to it with like speakers and the headphones, you have like a lot of different like panning and like movement. And I was wondering, like, is that part of the process, or is that part of like the mixing process, or like these instruments like automatically like just delve into spreading out the sound too?
It's definitely a part of, it's a lot a part of the mixing process. I put a lot into my mixes. I used to not, but like now I realize like how important it is to also, it adds to the like depth of the song.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think with like my music personally, whenever like I sit down and I start recording, it's like I'm glad I got to sit here and like record like maybe these 8 tracks, but like I really don't want to sit here and like edit them and like make them
Mhm.
sound like, I don't know, better than what I already anticipated. So do you ever have songs where you're like, I need to take my time and make sure like this is right, or is it kind of like a faster process of like once you record it, you get to mixing and editing it and then moving on?
Mm, it depends on the track. It really does depend on the track because some tracks I'm like, this is going to be easy to mix. I can do this. Some I really do have to take my time and just focus on that one thing and stay with it for a while.
All right, so we'll get into some of these fun questions. Do you have any hobbies outside of music?
Mm, I just love art in all forms. I used to draw and paint a lot and I kind of like lost my passion for it, but I'm trying to like regain that. I like doing photography. I like going to like crazy abandoned buildings and like forests and just taking photography. It brings me so much joy.
With photography, do you like do film or use phone or have like a outside camera? What's your vibe?
I used to shoot on film and I need to really get back into it. I just got another film camera that I have not used, but I usually shoot with a Canon power shot and it takes really good like nature shots. I like it a lot.
I'm like a fan of Nikon, and
Hmm.
I'm more of a Polaroid person. Like
Right.
if this Polaroid, I'm like, I hope that like film was expired and like this all comes out weird and has like,
Hmm.
different light exposures and stuff. Do you have any pets?
I have a snake.
Does this have a name?
Her name is Pasiphae.
What kind of snake?
She is a snow corn snake.
Snowcorn. So how do you feel about like venomous snakes? Are you a fan of like the cobras? And I don't think boas are actually poisonous.
Honestly, I
But
love all snakes. I feel like they're only venomous because like that's what they have to be to survive in where they live. But I love all snakes. I love them all so much.
so one thing I've heard it was like maybe like a famous quote from somebody that's really like a big snake care taker. I can't remember the full story, but it was like the snake fell into the fire and the person picked up the snake and that was burning, and the snake bit him, and then he dropped it back in the fire and he picked it back up and moved the snake again, and the person was like, why are you still picking up the snake after it bit you? And it was like, he was like, the nature of the snake is to bite you,
Mhm.
and but you have to still care and like respect nature, and like so even if it bites you, the purpose of nature is to help nature. So like the bigger picture was like, even if something hurts you or destructs you, it's still really important to take from that and like help it, and also like see how that's like part of like, I don't know, this wave of life. I'm really fascinated with the ways of the snake.
Mhm.
I'm actually want to say like my sign is a rat, so I know I would probably be snake meat. So I guess I kind of all right. Yeah, let's get into favorite movies.
Ooh, top three right now would have to be the movie May, um, the film Pariah, and then
Pariah.
Miramask.
What's pariah?
So it's about this girl, and she is a lesbian, and she's dealing with having to like change herself. Like when she goes to school, she's one person, but when she's at home, she's only allowed to be this other person who her parents want her to be.
I will have to look into this one.
It's really beautiful.
Also, do you have a favorite dessert?
Cheesecake.
Man, yeah, like, what kind of cheesecake are we talking?
New York style.
Good old
Mhm.
style. I feel like that, you can't go wrong with some New York style because, the taste is always there and you don't have to worry about the extra additives. And then if you
Mhm.
have additives, then you're always game.
Yeah,
Would you consider yourself a spiritual person?
I would. I would. Yeah,
Do you think that it kind of like plays a role in the music as far as like the different elevations and styles that you have going on?
it definitely does. I love giving my music like a very spiritual feel. Like I want listening to my music to be a spiritual experience and for people to be like out of their bodies kind of while listening to it.
Now, do you have a favorite song?
Of mine or just in general?
Let's go for in general first.
In general, I would have to say Duckling by Chloe Francis.
And also, yeah, like with listening to other music, like what kind of inspires you to do stuff that's different than what you listen to?
Honestly, I listen to everything. I feel like to be a good musical artist, you have to delve into every type of music and know every type of music so that you can kind of see what you like, see what you don't like, and put that into your sound.
I completely agree. For me, it's like whenever I'm like listening to different music, it's like I can, go to the streaming services or like I'm really big on YouTube. So it's just like going through lists of stuff on YouTube and like finding out like, songs that you would have never heard of from like either new people way from the past. And then like you're like, okay, like I can see like what that was working for them and like what could maybe kind of like be like the driving aspects of the songs. And also like what other ways can I make like my songs drive differently than like what I've been kind of going for.
Mhm.
And one of the big things I noticed in your music, like with the sampling and stuff, you like incorporate it to still have like messages. Are you kind of like going through stuff where you're like, oh, I really like that, I need to apply that, or how did the messages get into the themes of your songs?
It was definitely, I went into making the songs knowing that I was going to make them about these things. And I would just think, like, anytime I would see a film or a show and there was a scene in it that I was like, oh, this is what I'm feeling. I was like, I have to put this into a track.
Yeah, like one of the most recent ones for me, I mean, I put this out like a while back. I was like watching a lot of the Woody Allen movies, and
Hmm.
like the one with young Tobey Maguire, Disturbing Harry, um, or the Deconstructing of Harry. It's such an interesting film because I mean, if you're really like well aware of like Woody Allen's style and stuff, you see how he translates like parts of himself into these characters that are still somewhat of a representation of like aspects of his life or memories, but also like for that film, for that character. And like a lot of the ones where I don't know, like jokes about like the shrinks and like today's world of like I still can't, get a hold of myself because I'm still like really into horrors and that kind of stuff. I was just like, wow, like what a really interesting way of putting like the fact that the reason why that you're not moving forward in your life is because of like X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
And I feel like that to me was like a really relevant theme in like so many things in today's society is because like, oh, the reason why like we still can't move on because we still have like these external problems and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, whenever I was reflecting back onto some of your music, I can kind of relate to that. And also I really am wondering, yeah, like what all of these movies and TV shows are to like kind of watch it and then like kind of say like, oh yeah, I totally get where that snippet came from. And also I guess this is leading up to my next funny question. What's one random fact about yourself?
A random fact. Um, I want to live on a farm one day and raise lambs really badly. That's like my dream.
What about lambs? Like why lambs?
I just love them. You can like get a lot from a lamb. Like lambs, they give you milk, you get wool once they get older, and I just think they're like beautiful creatures. And I really hate that people like eat them and stuff like lamb chops. I don't like that. I would never like sell
Not
my
into
lambs.
lamb meat?
No, I would never. When I have a lamb farm, I'm never gonna sell my lambs for meat. They're only gonna be used for like wool.
Yeah, so like what? Once they die, that's whenever you have the oh no, I guess you shave them as they get big, huh? I'm not too keen on the lamb life, but I am in Ohio and I know a little bit about farms.
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm. What's like a favorite memory you have in general?
Mm. When I was in elementary school and I had this neighbor and we were like best friends, me and her. And one day my parents and her parents took us to Coney Island and we were on this like Ferris wheel, but it turned upside down. And I remember she kept like trying to spin it around and turn it upside down. And I was like so terrified and scared. And I like, that's like, that's like one of my favorite memories from childhood.
Are you actually still a fan of the Ferris wheel and like theme parks and stuff now?
Oh yeah, that definitely like broke me in. And like now I love roller coasters so much. I used to like work at an amusement park as well and operate like a couple rides, and on my days off I would like come and visit the park. It was really fun.
Now, you just recently played a show and you put that live set out on Bandcamp. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that show that you did.
So it was a show hosted by my friend Sloan. He lives in Louisville, and it was at this place called Camp Social Club. It was basically like a blend of like all genres. Like there were DJs there, there were like a lot. It was like everything. And then my set was like last, which I was pretty glad for. Like I liked that it was last. The crowd was really calm. I like calmed down the crowd. And I was like extremely scared and nervous because that was my first ever time like doing a show.
Do you still plan on doing more shows after this one then?
I definitely do. I definitely do. Now that I've had that experience, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely look forward to doing more in the future.
Yeah, so let's get into your music again. I checked out the two. What do the symbols mean?
Oh, it's called Nibanme, and basically it just means the second or second because it's just my second album.
Yeah, so the True Sophomore album even has like a special edition version. Talk a little bit about that process and also like a favorite song off it.
hmm So the process, there is a lot of sound design in that. So like I designed a lot of the pads and different things that are included in it, and then some of I would say like 40% of the tracks are like sampled songs that I really love, and I like reshaped them and made them ambient and kind of like unrecognizable. And yeah, I think my favorite song off of the regular version of the album would have to be Hope's Interlude, and then off of the deluxe would have to be Foolish Girl.
And also like what were some of like the themes and like what kind of drove that like release? Or like what kind of birthed that release for you?
So it's very much like a event album because um I don't know if I want to get into like everything that it's about right now, but it's about some very like dark things that happened to me in my past.
Well, the titles are is one reason why I bring that up because I think they have some really interesting ones, and that's where I was like,
Mhm,
okay, so I wondered if that was maybe intentional or also like
yeah.
a little bit of cash grab too, because you kind of click on some of these ones like immediately, even though like Bandcamp, you have some of these ones chosen towards their plays, and I don't know. So I've had a really interesting time getting immersed in that realm of music in the last
Hmm.
couple of days,
Hmm.
and I really wondered like what kind of like transpose some of that too. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about like recording process. So like how did you start?
Um, some of them I just play around in the piano roll, and some of them I like actually pull out like my huge keyboard and just brainstorm and play chords and play notes and just figure out what I like and what sounds good and what makes me feel certain emotions that I want to convey.
What kind of doll and stuff were you running for this?
So I use FL Studio, but I've tried to get into Ableton, and some of the songs were like partially made on Ableton, but I still took it back into FL Studio.
So are you a fan of always using like Mac or Apple stuff?
Yeah, I kind of have been in recent years. I do. I have my MacBook and I love it a lot. My friend is always trying to tell me that MacBooks are like shit and that I should get like Windows, but I'm okay.
I get it. For me, like younger, whenever I was younger, like 14, even younger than that, like it was always like tapes and just like setting up the tape thing and like click and record and
Hmm.
then like having the, recording like that entire space of like all the amps and everything plugged up and just seeing how that comes out.
Hmm.
And like, and like even in my mind, like I was never like I need to get to a studio or get a computer and record this
Yeah.
stuff better. And like it really took me some time to kind of start because like my first computer I got was like a Toshiba, so it was just
Mhm.
using like all these different kind of Windows and Android mixed craft and that kind of stuff to take a dive on learning how to record music in a different way. But I still now, like as I'm getting older, using the computer now it's Mac always and like Logic. But I've always been like going like you wanting to go back to like the other way that I was doing
Yeah.
it. And I was wondering, like after you put out that first release and then you've been mixing it up now, did you ever kind of like take that step back and you were like, oh, I've been doing, never the same thing twice?
Mhm. Oh, I definitely have. And I feel like I am just like you right now. Like I'm kind of stepping back from using DAWs and doing stuff digitally and using like hardware. Like I have a 4-track tape recorder and I've made like a couple songs that I have on SoundCloud with it. And
I did see a SoundCloud. That's a cool
mhm.
drop.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. But yeah, I've been like trying to collect more. Like I have like a MPD, a Kai MPD pad that I use sometimes to make little like beats. I have a SP404 MK2 that I actually used that at the show to do my like set.
Yeah, let's get into whenever you're like practicing to play, what's that look like for you? Are you trying to focus on one instrument at a time or figure out like how am I going to do like all these songs? How does that work for you?
So I take it one song, as far as like making my set list for the show, I took it like one song at a time and I made the individual parts in FL Studio, did a little sound designing, and then I took it and like put it on an SD card, put the SD card on my SP404, and then kind of played around with the effects that the SP404 has and like resampled it, made it sound how I wanted it to sound, and then just practice, 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 and then move on to the next song and repeat.
Now let's get into a little bit of the funny vibes I have. Now this one I feel like is the classic. If you were stranded on an island and you could only bring one thing with you, what would you bring?
Mm, a book. In particular, probably the book would be Circe by Madeline Miller.
I've heard a lot about Cersei. Is it like the
Hmm.
actual place and right?
Hmm. Well, no, it's not about the actual place. It's about, so Circe is, she's a witch, basically. It's a part of mythology, and she's like a witch who got cast out for doing witchcraft, and she lives on an island by herself.
I also know that the real Cersei has a lot to do with like the the Civil War,
Hmm.
that kind of shit, which is essential. Did you watch the new Leonardo DiCaprio Killers of the Flower Moon yet?
I haven't, but I meant to.
It's unbelievable. That one is like a real trip. All right, so how do you feel about like weed? Are you a fan of sativa, indica?
I used to smoke a lot when I was like younger, but I stopped smoking for like a couple years, and then my tolerance got really low, and I tried to get back into it, and I didn't like how it made me feel, so I kind of stopped. But when I did, I kind of like hybrids, like blends between sativa and indica, but on days where I like to relax, go to sleep, definitely indica. Indica is my favorite.
I mean, personally, I guess I don't care like about too much about the preference, but I mean, every single time I get weed, it's like, what's the fucking name? What kind is it? How high is that going to get me? And I think that's like, so funny. Like, I remember whenever I was like 15, 16, and I'd like drink a beer or something, and my uncle would be like, is that going to get you high? Like a beer was going to get me high. And like, so I'm so like, yeah, this shit better get me high. All right, so what would your ultimate last meal be?
Mm. Like if I was on death row and they asked me what my last meal would be,
Yeah, and you get to, have your day of great meal.
I would take fried shrimp tempura sushi with spicy mayo sauce.
Are you a fan of sriracha?
Slightly, slightly. I'm indifferent about it.
Yeah, for me, like whenever I first got exposed to sriracha, I was putting it on about everything, and then I was like realizing that it was not ideal,
I think my mom
especially with
like
like
my
eggs
mom
and
like
breakfast stuff.
my mom like gave me a little bit when I was like really young, and I like my reaction was like terrible. I was like, what am I eating right now?
Okay, so what would be your biggest fear and why?
Mm, I would say my biggest fear would be having no one to go to at all.
Like I Am Legend scenario.
Yeah, literally. If I was in like that type of scenario, I think I would like freak out and not be able to function. I just need that. Like, I'm not a very social person. I'm very much scared of people. But once I get used to people and like get close to people, those people, I really like confide in them, and like I definitely do need them.
One of my like all-time favorite movies, I would say, is Vanilla Sky. And like
Mhm.
the moment whenever Tom Cruise wakes up and he's in New York and they shut down New York for that scene that's for nobody to be out in the streets. And
Mhm.
I'm like was just thinking, yeah, like if you were like literally like in a big city and like everything was just like cleared out and empty and isolated and you were the only one left, I think I might have fun for about like a couple of hours, and then I would be like, I'm like, yeah, terrified and like done with my life.
Mhm. There's this
Um,
show called Alice in Borderland,
oh, I
and like
haven't seen
this,
that yet.
you haven't, it's so good. It's like in the first season, him and his friends are just like out for the day hanging out, and then I think they like use the bathroom, and when they go outside, like everybody is like gone, like disappeared.
Yeah, it is one of those ones I've been recommended to take a dive on, and I've been meaning to. Yeah, and like let's mention to your music. Do you have like a favorite album now that you've done too?
Mm, my favorite album is probably I did like a little collab album project with two of my friends who also make
That
like
was from the
ambient music.
Valley. Yeah,
Hmm.
that one's cool.
Yeah, I love that one a lot. We worked really hard on it, and I'm really proud of the outcome.
Yeah, that one's very enjoyable. And also, like, what was your first instrument? Like, what was your first love?
My first instrument that I ever played was piano. Piano was like the love of my life when I was in like elementary school, and I like used to take lessons. But then I remember the piano teacher who I went to, her store like got shut down because they like raised the rent. And so I couldn't take lessons anymore. I kind of like forgot a lot of the stuff I used to know.
Um, do you feel comfortable saying like what area or where you grew up there, like
Mm,
wise?
I'm kind of embarrassed of that, so I don't really talk about that online much.
Um, I'm on the same page. I mean, like I even though I've moved a lot, I'm like growing up in the Midwest is
Oh,
always
I will say
interesting.
that. Yeah, I'm from the Midwest. I'll say that.
So yeah, as we mentioned, some TV shows. What other kind of TV shows and stuff have you been watching lately?
Lately, lately I've just been on Tubi watching old cartoons. Like I think I watched in its entirety the show Brace Face the other day, and
I'm
it was
familiar.
like it's like so goofy and silly.
Right. So are we talking Roku or Fire Stick? This one's funny.
Fire Stick.
All right. I'm a fan of Fire Stick just because you can get on the internet and also download like those bullshit like hack apps that have
Yeah.
everything. Even if it fucks up your Fire Stick eventually. Uh, I'm like, Fire Stick just needs to lock that part down, and I will be forever grateful. Like, I hate that Roku, like, you can't stream on the Roku if, like, from your phone if you don't have
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, and it's like really, really specific. But for some reason, Fire Stick is very cool about like if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can still use it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking great on that part.
Mhm.
This one's a funny Vibo question. So, if you had a time machine, would you go forwards or backwards?
Probably backwards. There's a lot of stuff in the past that I'm like, I don't know if this is real, and I want to confirm it. And also, like, I just want to be there to see these things happening.
I'm on the same page. I mean, as far as like, yeah, like for me, like, growing up like with friends, kind of like dissecting more about like those friendships too, other than just like focusing on like relationships or problems and that kind of stuff. I've always been really interested on taking that step back and seeing like
Mhm.
what that actually looked like as a child compared
Right.
to today. That one's like maybe like a deep cut on Bibo.
I think I would, the first thing I would do is go back in time and see if Helen Keller were real because I don't believe that she was a real person. I'm really sorry. I don't.
Yeah, reading about Helen Keller, I'm like, she had what going on? You're
Yeah.
telling me she wasn't getting? I don't want
It
to
just
make
doesn't
any
make sense to
assumption.
me. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, yeah, plenty of stuff whenever it comes to like war. But yeah, let's get into this one. This one's kind of funny. Would you consider yourself introvert or extrovert?
I'm very much introvert. I don't really I like kind of stay to myself, stay in my apartment, and I have friends, and I've been trying to hang out with them more, but I definitely do have to take those times to myself to cool down and recharge my social battery.
For me, I think I have no social battery,
Yeah.
and like at the same time, yeah, like I can. I mean, like I guess being in the city, like I lived down in Seattle and stuff for a while, and like I was like going out every night, and also like being on the road with my friends in a van every night. We were going out and doing something or having to be out, all day. And I feel like now that I'm getting older, I'm 27 now, and like if I'm getting, asked to go out to like see a show or something, and like even if I have to pay for it or not, I'm like, who's there? What's playing? Like, what's the vibe? How far is it? How long do you think? It's like
Mhm.
now I have like it's like a little bit different as far as like just going out to be out for the rest of the night. As far
Right.
as like, here's a kind of a funny one. Have you ever had to run from the cops?
No, no, I have not.
Oh,
Yeah, I
always
think I
been a
would.
good girl.
Yeah, I think I would like probably like cry or pee myself if I ever ran from the cops. Any like interaction I have with like the cops, I'm kind of like very much afraid.
This one's kind of funny. I remember one night I was like on acid with my friend, and we were smoking weed, and we happened to like I lived across from the Veterans Hospital, and so we happened to like cut through the Veterans Hospital like roadway, and there just
Mhm.
happened to be like a cop there, and we randomly like stopped because we were like, oh shit, there's a cop, but maybe we can obviously drive down this road. We got pulled over, and I'm like tripping balls, like so nervous, and was like, but my dad, he works at the prison, bro. Like, yeah, but we weren't tossing drugs over there. We weren't even close to the fence. Like, I'm just saying everything. My friend is just like the driver. My friend Matt Herf is just looking over at me like, Jeffrey, you need to shut up. Like, don't say anything else, man. You are fucking drugs. I mean, that was not a night I had to run from the cops, but
Yeah,
um,
I think I told myself I would never try acid because in the past I used to know this person and like he said like he used to take acid like all the time every day and he was just like so fried. Like I remember he was trying to convince me that the Underground Railroad was actually a train station that they built underground that they transported like slaves through and I was like, no, I don't think that is how that worked.
yeah, that's also one reason why I want to go back in time and see about this Underground Railroad scenario. I mean, I'm definitely one of those deadheads who did way too much acid, and probably still do too much psychedelics. What
I would
would you
definitely try shrooms.
what would you say is the meaning of life for you? Do you have a perception on it?
Mm. I really don't. I really don't. Like
Do
growing up,
you do you
my
feel like
dad,
an ant?
an ant, yeah, I do feel like a little speck in this huge thing that is the universe.
I can get that. So like, yeah, like why would you not say that you have an understanding of meaning of life?
I don't know.
What's your take?
I just haven't really delved into it. There's so many people with so many different opinions. Like my dad used to tell me like the meaning of life is to have babies and then die and raise those babies and then die and then those babies grow up. Da, 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 da. And I just never really liked that. I don't like that meaning. I feel like it's way deeper than that and I can't even comprehend it. And I don't I wanna see what the meaning of my life is, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I'm on the same kind of verge. Like every single time I trip, I think I have an idea about like the certain meanings and connections of life, and
Hmm.
also like my own, or like my own purpose and place. And then at the same time, it's like a complete like obliviousness to like your place in that time, you know.
Yeah.
Um, one other thing I think is really interesting too about like whenever you trip, um the kind of like experiences that you can have in that, like it's either more like internalized and you're like thinking about so much past stuff or your current life or whatever, or it's like you're able to immerse yourself in outside of yourself because you're
Mhm.
not focused on that.
That's how
um
it used to be when I like first started like smoking. It was like that. It was like external, but then like when I tried to get back into it, it was just all internal. I was just like in my thoughts, like I couldn't focus on anything and I didn't like it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's kind of whenever you get to that point, that's whenever the advice is to step back, and
Hmm.
I'm always really bad about that part. And also like I don't think I've asked you, like what movies have you seen recently?
Mm. Recently. Let me see. Let me check my letterbox because I don't think I've watched movies in like a month. But I'll tell you what I watched. I watched this Japanese movie called Pulse. It's really good. I remember like seeing like a bunch of videos on it on YouTube, like, oh, this is the scariest scene in cinema history or da 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 da. And I watched it. It was very eerie. I liked how they used the elements they did to like scare the audience kind of. It was very beautiful. I love J horror and like all the tactics they use. I watched some movie called They Slash Them, and it was like some slasher film about a conversion camp, and
I
it wasn't
definitely
very
have
good.
seen. I haven't watched this, but I've seen
Yeah,
that.
it
Yeah.
was really bad. It was really,
Okay.
really bad.
With Pulse, I think. I mean, I think the American version is okay, but yeah, the Japanese version is much better and much more interesting. I'd say that the other Pulse movies they just didn't hold up on the American
Yeah,
side.
I didn't even know they made an American version. I don't think I will check it out though. I don't really like that. Like,
Yeah.
Ring,
Oh,
like
definitely.
I hate the American version so bad, but I actually have the original Japanese version on DVD. I watch it like all the time. Same with like The Grudge.
Now, what would you say is like an alternate favorite horror flick of yours?
Mm, let me think. Um I would have to say Ju-on The Grudge. Like I I have it on DVD and I watch it like constantly over and over because I just love all the elements that they use to scare the audience. It's so good.
Would you also consider that one like the better series out of like the couple movies that they have? I think it's like three or
Hmm.
four.
Yeah. Well, there is one, I forget exactly the title, but it's called Jew on the Curse. And I don't have that on DVD, but I've seen it and it's like way scarier than the other one. And I love it so much.
Are you a fan of anime?
Mm, in recent times, I've definitely got out of it, but I definitely am. I would say I definitely am.
Now, are you gonna see the new Maya Miyazaki,
Mm,
the boy and the heron?
I don't know. You think I should?
I think it's worth it. I had a good time watching it, but I
Mhm.
think like if I watched the Japanese version, it'd probably be a lot better.
Right.
But I do still really appreciate how much they put into the translated versions.
Hmm.
Yeah, like, and I think maybe that might be like one reason why that there's that split from like this audience and then like the European audience that
Right.
gets it kind of straight up as is. I feel like that some of those like the way that you're communicating those ideas and those themes that are more prevalent in the film, you're
Hmm.
like not getting that much from the American side because of how American life is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like we have a lot more first world problems per se than able to take like the time and the interception and some of this other stuff. But I don't know. I'm really into like the last good anime I've seen probably is like the My Hero Academia. Actually,
Hmm.
that one I think is
I'm
really
not gonna
interesting.
lie. I hated that. I'm sorry.
Oh
I
man,
I did.
I'm like really into how like also like it's really like anybody that creates something from the Yu Yu Hakusho era stuff.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, like those animators, that style. I think it's more about like that style. Like you're really stoned and like still not like shit on that art maybe. But
Right.
although I'm like really into the 80s, 90s kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, let's get into. Are you a fan of reading?
I
Yeah.
love reading.
Are you,
Behind me, I have like a bookshelf with like over 100 books on it right now.
well, I thought it was interesting that on your island question that you mentioned a book. So, um, I don't know. I've seen that. Yeah, I seen that like that new John Lennon documentary about the death of John Lennon, and I didn't know too much about why that killer was so big on JD Salinger and like was like catching the right. You gotta read it. This is why I killed this person to some extent.
Mhm.
Do you kind of have like any books that whenever you've read feel like like it takes over your mind?
Mm, think. I feel like every book I read kind of like takes over my mind and I'm like transported into the world that they are describing to me with the words. And I like love that about reading. I love books more than I love watching films because it's like films, yeah, it gives you the visuals, but books, it's so fun because you imagine the visuals. Like no two people reading the same book are gonna imagine the exact same thing. And I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially for imagery wise, and like like well, I'm like really interested in like philosophy and these weirder ideas. Like I got into Foucault whenever I was in college and
Mhm.
reading a little bit, just trying to dissect like the knowledge. I think like that would be a really intense um kind of like direction if you're going to take on a film where you're breaking down like so many different like ideologies and structures and stuff. And that's one thing I think is really interesting because you can't necessarily do that. And it's really similar with music because there's only so much like that you can get from like listening to an album, and then
Mhm.
also like, oh, if I see this music video and I don't listen to the album, this is like my perception of like that artist for now on, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, and like with I feel like with your music, you've kind of taken a lot of different directions as far as like how you're able to immerse yourself into that music and also look at it from a product and also like the artist standpoint.
Right, right.
Does that kind of go into whenever you're working on a project on how it's going to translate?
Yeah, I feel like it does because I definitely I try to do the most I can to get the most feeling into a song and convey that onto the audience.
Also, like whenever it comes to your recording, like how are you starting like your recording and overdubbing and that kind of stuff? Like how does that happen for you?
Mm, you go into a little more detail with that question? Like,
Yeah, like whenever you start recording, like do you always have like, oh, I'm going to start working like with this instrument first, or do you always kind of think about like what am I bringing to this track and like having to like do your editing and overdubs like throughout the time it takes you on recording?
I definitely, when I go into starting to record a track, I'm like, I want it to feel like this. I want to do this. So I'm going to like, I go through like any of the plugins I have, or I'll use like Serum or Vital and like design a pad or a pluck or anything and get it to sound how I want it to feel, basically.
Yeah. And like whenever it comes to like your like the sampling and the vocal stuff, like how do you break that down?
hmm So as far as sampling, like sampling movie clips or sampling
Yeah,
different songs.
yeah, whenever you're sampling like the movie clips and adding it in, like how do you do like that process and getting it out into your
Mm-hmm.
music?
So for I'll just use for example the track MTF. For that, I definitely wanted all the vocal samples to sound like they were drowning. Like I wanted the listener to feel like they were kind of drowning in the sound. So I put like a low pass filter on it, a little bit crushing, and mixed it a little bit. Did some EQing and just made it sound how I wanted it to sound in that moment.
Now, thank you for taking this time to kind of break this stuff down for me and for the listeners out there. This one's my last like official Bible question, but
Mhm.
it is a stand-up one. How did you come up with your artist name and like what's the story behind that?
So, um, basically, I was thinking a lot about female serial killers, and I came up with this like username for one of my like older accounts called Slasher Girls, and I was like, this is kind of cool because at the time when I was making music, I think I went by Teriyaki, and I was like, this is really cool, so I'm gonna tweak it a little bit. So I just shortened it to like Slash Girl.
And also, like, would you consider yourself a slash girl?
Mm, maybe sometimes I feel like it.
Also, I guess yeah, like, are you currently working on anything right now? And like, do you have any like releases planned? Any shows lined up?
Mhm. I don't have any shows lined up. I do have some releases planned. I just finished, I think last week, me and my friend Oliver, we're working on this little collab project, and we just finished it. It's gonna have like 8 tracks, and it should be out sometime early 2024. And then after that, I think I'm gonna take a small little break from releasing under Slash Girl and start like releasing different types of music under an alias.
Very cool. We're gonna be mixing it up soon.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for joining Vibe Osmosis. Do you have any shout outs before we go?
Mm, no, not really. No, like, not that I can think of.
All right. Well, I thank you for taking this time, and hopefully it's a good rest of your day.
Mhm. Thank you for having me, and you have a
Thank
great day
you.
as well.
Thank you. I'll keep you posted on all this, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.